Rule number one of surviving university as an unbonded Omega: never run out of suppressants. Because when the school's unattainable alpha knots you in a dark supply closet, you block his number out of pure humiliation, not realizing he's about to spend the next few months chasing you around. Chapter 1. I slapped my face multiple times, trying to shock myself out of the heat spreading beneath my skin. I had felt it coming earlier during class. The moment that sudden, suffocating warmth bloomed inside me, I quietly slipped out and ran to the nearest supply closet. The bathrooms were always too crowded, but this dark, cramped closet was my best bet. Goddess, why now? I had completely run out of my suppressants. If I didn't find a way to contain this heat soon, my sweet Omega scent would start seeping right out from under the door. In my world, you're checked and labeled the moment you hit puberty. Alphas, betas, and Omegas. Alphas are the dominant ones, always in charge, fiercely protective, and naturally stronger. Betas are the normal, everyday population. And then there's me, the unlucky ones. An Omega. We're naturally submissive, nurturing, and completely helpless when it comes to an alpha. What was happening to me right now was a prime example. When an Omega goes into heat, it's unbearable and painful. It feels like being forced to drink a heavy, agonizing dose of an aphrodisiac. There are only two things that can stop it. First, suppressant pills, which I was entirely out of. Second, something a single Omega like me didn't have access to: an alpha. Sleeping with an alpha is the only true cure. Suppressant pills only mask your scent to keep you safe, but the agonizing symptoms always remain. It makes things incredibly dangerous for us. An alpha can easily take advantage of you if you're not careful, and when you're in heat, you're too weak to even think about resisting. My breathing grew louder and heavier as I desperately tried to keep myself calm in the dark.
Well, a little Omega in heat.
A quiet, low voice suddenly vibrated from the shadows behind me. I jolted, spinning around. I could see a tall silhouette looming over me, but the darkness refused to let me see his face. I'm not, I gasped. Oh no, please let him be a beta. He laughed lowly, the sound deep and dangerous, and I heard him step closer. He sounded so incredibly familiar, but my hazy mind couldn't place it.
Don't lie to me, Lily. I can smell your scent. He chuckled softly, teasing me as he closed the distance. It's suffocating me so bad.
My heart stopped. Wait, he knows my name? Before I could deny it or ask how he knew who I was, a heavy, intoxicating scent of pine and wood suddenly flooded the closet, completely overwhelming my senses. I immediately slapped my hand over my nose, trying not to inhale it. Is that you? I panicked, realizing he was releasing his pheromones. Suddenly, I was pushed firmly against the wall, his hand wrapped around mine, pulling it away from my face and forcing me to inhale his rich, dark scent. What are you doing? I cried out, already losing my mind. Just inhale my scent and let me help you, he whispered darkly. He buried my face into the crook of his neck, his large hand gripping my waist tightly, as if he were holding himself back, waiting for me to give him permission. The agonizing pain of my heat instantly began to weaken against his soothing alpha scent. Unconsciously, my body betrayed me, burying itself deeper into his neck. But the relief brought a different kind of torture. The friction between my legs and his intoxicating scent were driving me completely insane with lust. I didn't want to give in. I really didn't. But as the minutes ticked by, it became impossible to resist. Oh, okay. Help me, please, I muffled against his skin. I felt him let out a heavy sigh of relief the moment I submitted. Why? A dark thought crossed my mind. He was an alpha. He could have just taken advantage of me from the start. I wouldn't have had the strength to fight him off anyway. Before I knew it, the world blurred. I found myself biting down hard on his shoulder, trying to stifle my own moans, completely delirious with pleasure as he pounded inside me. Too much, I whimpered, losing my mind to the overwhelming sensations. He was panting quietly, burying his face in my neck and pressing soft, tender kisses against my skin, a stark contrast to his hard, deep thrusts.
Fuck. You feel so good. He kept mumbling against my pulse.
My heart pounded furiously in my ears, and every time his low voice rumbled those words, a fresh wave of arousal crashed through me. Before I could even process it, an intense climax ripped through my body, but he didn't stop.
I'm sorry, just a bit more. You can take it, Lily, he whispered hoarsely into my ear.
He firmly covered my mouth with his hand when my soft moans started getting too loud, dangerous enough to echo outside the door. And then I felt it. He nodded inside me.
Shit. I'm sorry. I heard him grunt. His voice strained as I whimpered beneath him, feeling him expand inside of me, his warm seed completely filling me up.
Between the exhaustion of the heat and the intensity of the release, my vision went dark, and I passed out. When I finally woke up, I was shocked to find myself staring at my own ceiling. I was in my bedroom. For a split second, I actually thought it had all been a wild, vivid dream. But then I moved, and a sharp soreness radiated between my legs. It definitely wasn't a dream.
Lily.
I flinched as my brother, Zach, suddenly called out, pushing my bedroom door open. Oh no, was he the one who found me? My brother was a beta, but despite not having alpha genetics, he was a fiercely hard worker and had managed to become the captain of the school's football team. He had always been incredibly protective of me. He would absolutely lose his mind and scold me to death if he found out I went into heat and forgot to restock my suppressants again. I looked at him, my chest tight with nerves, but he surprised me by rushing over and pulling me into a tight hug.
What happened? Zach breathed, his voice laced with worry. James said he found you passed out in one of the supply closets.
I froze. Huh? Oh, right. He's a beta. Of course, Zach couldn't smell the thick scent of an alpha all over me, or the fact that I had just been completely railed in that closet. But my brain stalled on the name. Wait, I whispered, my voice trembling. Who did you say found me?
James, Zach said simply. Thank God he found you and brought you home before those predatory alphas at school did, he mumbled, shaking his head.
The way my eyes widened and my jaw dropped must have looked comical. His best friend? The vice captain of the football team? The guy who was notoriously quiet, stoic, and avoided girls at all costs? Carried me home? And worse, he found me. Probably completely wrecked, half naked, and covered in the aftermath of a heat. If the ground could have opened up and swallowed me whole right then, I would have gladly let it. I hurriedly checked under the blankets and realized, to my absolute horror, that I was completely clean and dressed in fresh clothes. Did he clean me up too?
Why were you passed out anyway? Zach asked, his eyes narrowing slightly with growing suspicion.
I gulped, forcing my voice to stay steady. Ems Gomez asked me to grab some cleaning supplies, but the door jammed and I got locked in. I think I just passed out from exhaustion, since my heat only finished yesterday. It was a total lie, but knowing how draining an Omega's heat could be, Zach let out a long sigh, nodding sympathetically as he reached out to ruffle my hair.
Okie, just be careful next time, and please keep your phone on you. Geez, Lily, he scolded softly, giving me one last worried look before turning to leave the room so I could rest.
The moment the door clicked shut, I grabbed my pillow, stuffed my face into it, and screamed at the top of my lungs from sheer embarrassment. I couldn't believe it. James, one of the hottest, most intimidating alphas in the entire school, had seen me like that. Suddenly, my phone vibrated violently on the nightstand. I jolted, my heart leaping into my throat. Screen name, James. Oh no, oh no, no, no. With violently trembling hands, I immediately declined the incoming call. There was no way I could speak to him. Instead, I opened our chat and typed as fast as my fingers could move. Thank you for bringing me home. I'm so sorry you found me like that. The second the message delivered, I didn't even wait for a reply. I hit his profile and instantly clicked block. I was too humiliated to even look at what he might say. I buried my head back under my pillow, the lingering exhaustion from the heat pulling me back down into a deep, heavy sleep for the rest of the day, only waking up when Zach or my mom forced me to eat. Chapter 2. I spent the entire weekend hiding under my blankets. I was completely convinced that if I just stayed perfectly still, Monday wouldn't come. It did. The moment I stepped through the school gates, my eyes were scanning the crowd like a prey animal. My heart was practically in my throat. I just needed to avoid James. It shouldn't be hard. He was a senior, a star athlete, and an elite alpha. He was basically royalty. I was just Zach's quiet younger sister.
Hey, Lil. Zach's voice suddenly startled me, throwing a heavy arm over my shoulder as we walked into the main building. You feeling better? You still look a little pale.
Yeah, totally fine, I lied, keeping my eyes glued strictly to my sneakers.
Good. Because James is driving us home after practice today. He actually said he needed to talk to.
I didn't hear the rest. My heart did a violent, agonizing flip. He needs to talk to who? Before I could completely spiral into a panic attack, the warning bell rang. It was my saving grace. I practically ripped myself out of Zach's grip, mumbled a terrible excuse about being late, and bolted down the hallway toward my locker. My hands were shaking so badly as I grabbed my textbooks that I dropped, then saw my lip balm, watching it roll across the floor. As I bent down to grab it, a large, dark shadow suddenly loomed over me. Before I could even look up, a heavy, intoxicating wave of pine and fresh woods hit my senses. My breath hitched. My body froze. My inner Omega went into an instant, wild frenzy, immediately recognizing the exact scent from the dark closet.
You blocked me.
The voice was low, smooth, and laced with a terrifyingly dominant alpha undertone, but behind it was a small hint of disappointment, almost sad. I slowly stood up, my back pressing hard against the cold metal of my locker. My knees felt like jelly. It was James. He was wearing his varsity jacket. His dark hair slightly messy, and his piercing eyes were staring directly down into mine. He looked completely stoic, but the slight flare of his nostrils told me he was tracking my scent, making sure I was really the one standing in front of him. I texted you, thank you, I stammered, my face burning so hot I thought it might melt. It was embarrassing. Thank you for carrying me home after you found me. James took a slow step closer, completely invading my personal space. He placed one large hand on the locker right next to my head, trapping me between his chest and the metal. He leaned down, his lips brushing the shell of my ear as he whispered, his hot breath making me shiver.
I didn't just find you, Lily.
I completely stopped breathing.
You really don't remember. He lowly chuckled, a dark sound that vibrated right through my own chest. You begged me to help you. You bit my shoulder so hard, I'm still wearing the mark under this shirt.
My jaw dropped. The remaining small noises of the hallway around us seemed to instantly fade into background noise. The silhouette in the dark, the familiar voice, the safety I felt. It was you? I breathed out, my eyes wide with a mix of horror and sudden, overwhelming realization.
It was me, James said, his gaze dropping to my lips for a fraction of a second before locking back onto my eyes. And an alpha doesn't just nod an omega and let her block him. You're mine now, Lily. You just haven't realized it yet.
Before my brain could even process the explosion of information, he pulled back, gave me a lazy, devastating smirk, and walked away, disappearing into the crowd of students. Chapter 3. Because James was the vice captain of the university football team and Zach's absolute best friend, escaping him was physically impossible. He practically lived at our apartment, blending into the background of my life like a permanent fixture.
Pass the salt, Lil, Zach mumbled on a Tuesday evening, his eyes glued to his tablet as we sat around the kitchen island.
I reached for the shaker, but another large, calloused hand brushed mine intentionally. A violent jolt of electricity shot straight up my arm. I flinched, my eyes snapping up. James took the shaker from my fingers, his dark eyes locking onto mine with a heavy, unblinking intensity that made my throat dry.
Thanks, Lily, James said, his voice deep, smooth, and deliberately slow.
Yeah, I squeaked, my face flushing a furious crimson as I looked back down at my plate, trying to ignore the smug, barely there smirk playing on his lips. An hour later, Zach groaned, realizing he'd left our food delivery package down in the complex lobby. "Be right back," he muttered, tossing his keys in the air and heading out. The moment the front door clicked shut, the atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. The heavy, intoxicating scent of pine and fresh woods flooded the living room, thick and commanding. Before I could even stand up from the couch to run to my room, a massive shadow loomed over me.
"You're still avoiding me," James murmured, leaning down and trapping me against the cushions. He placed one hand on the back of the couch, his large body completely blocking my view of the rest of the room. His other hand reached out, his thumb gently caressing my skin right over my neck's sensitive scent gland.
"James, stop. Zach will be back in 2 minutes," I gasped, my inner Omega instantly purring at his touch, betraying my panic.
"Then I have 2 minutes," he whispered darkly.
He leaned down and pressed a slow, firm, devastating kiss against my lips. It tasted like mint and pure alpha dominance. I meant to push him away, but my hands just gripped his shirt, pulling him closer. By the time he pulled away, my head was spinning and my breathing was completely wrecked. He gave me a lazy, satisfied smirk, sat back on the opposite armchair, and picked up his phone just as Zach's key turned in the lock. Chapter 4. The next few weeks were a game of mental chess. James kept dropping subtle hints when Zach wasn't looking, but on campus, a different kind of nightmare was brewing. Chloe, the elite Omega who had been eyeing James since freshman year, decided to make her move, and she wanted to make sure everyone, especially me, saw it. I was sitting in the campus cafe trying to edit an essay when Chloe and her friends sat at the booth right next to mine. She didn't even acknowledge me, but she spoke loudly enough for the entire room to hear.
"Oh my God, girls. So James bought me a latte this morning before his workout," Chloe purred, swirling her straw. "He was being so sweet. He told me he liked my new perfume. Alphas are so transparent when they're trying to court someone."
My chest tightened. An ugly, hot spike of jealousy flared deep in my stomach. He bought her a coffee? He liked her perfume? I knew I had blocked him, and I knew I was trying to keep my distance, but hearing that made me want to throw my laptop at her head. The real trap sprung the next night. Zach had dragged me to a post-game mixer at a local campus venue. I was standing by the drinks table when I saw them. Chloe was wearing a tight dress, practically glued to James's side. She reached up, casually smoothing down the collar of his varsity jacket, laughing loudly at something his teammates said. James looked stoic, his usual unreadable self, but he wasn't pulling away like he usually does with other girls.
"They look good together, right?" One of the football blockades commented near me. "I heard their parents are business partners. They'll probably end up together, merging the companies."
I couldn't breathe. The jealousy was suffocating. I couldn't stand looking at her hands on his jacket, the same jacket that had been draped over my shoulders just weeks ago. Unable to take it anymore, I set my cup down and walked out into the cool night air, blinking back tears of pure frustration as I immediately texted Zach I wanted to go home. Chapter 5. The next morning, the campus gossip page was practically screaming about James and Chloe. I walked through the sports complex hallways, heading toward the student lounge, feeling completely drained and incredibly bitter. If James wanted me so badly, why was he letting her stroke his jacket? Why wasn't he pushing her away? I was completely done with his mixed signals. If he wanted to play boyfriend with the campus queen bee, he could leave me out of it.
"Hey, Lily." Chloe's voice echoed down the hall, breaking my train of thought.
I stopped, bracing myself. She stepped out from the women's locker room door, flanked by her usual crowd.